Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Within the Cauldron podcast episode. Tonight, we are doing Witchy Women. We have a few different guests, and then joining me tonight, also Chrissy, our co host that you're all familiar with. So I'll go ahead and start and to bring them up, introduce our guests. Oh, and then for those who don't know, my name is Amber. Okay. Let's go ahead and bring up our guest for the evening for the Witchy Woman talk. All right, first we have, I'm going to pre-apologize if I mispronounce it. Is it Bitu?
B2.
B2. Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay.
And then we also have joining with us this evening author Judika Illis. And some of you may notice or recall her from one of our more recent episodes, Tish Owen. She is also an author. All right. So let's go ahead and kind of dive in. Do any of you want to add on to your intros before I begin the discussion? Okay. All right. So something that I was thinking about throughout the day that I kind of wanted to jumpstart us with is how do we feel about, I guess, do you find that the women in the pagan community often support each other within coven and with our practices? So I just kind of wanted to go first with the women perspective and how that falls in with our practices and interactions with each other, and then kind of just dive into all sorts of different topics, if that sounds good.
Well, I go first.
Okay.
I think, yes, I do think women does support other witchy women. I do. I know from being in the community for 27 years and also in the covenant for over 30 years that there's some type of jealousy at times that comes along with the women. Also with the men too, actually. And that is just something that should not happen because envy is just, it's a nasty four-letter word. Actually, it's like hate, So you should not. You should actually support each other. If you have ideas, just say, hey, I have some ideas. Let's work together. But that is my perspective. I have had a lot of both ways. I have a lot of great friends that support me, and have had a lot of women who doesn't care for me. So, but it goes along with the community, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Sometimes I think the hierarchy, structure within a coven, can sometimes make things difficult. But I think that also goes across the genders, men, women alike, where we all try to do our best and to learn things, but then every once in a while, the degree system kind of kicks in just slightly. Now, when it comes to some of the more traditional, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. With the mother, the maiden, the crone, the different aspects of the goddess. Do you think that also comes in a lot with the different cycles that a woman, I guess, plays throughout her practice? Like transitioning from maidenhood to motherhood to cronehood. Do you see that develop a lot within coven structures and people's practices? Like how they transition their behavior or their things that they're interested in.
Yeah, with well, as you know, with our coven, we do have maiden, mother, and crone a lot. That I think when they get in the maiden stage, they're kind of like hungry and thirsty for the knowledge, and when they get into the mother stage, they're ready to go. They want to help out and everything. The crone stage, I have noticed they like to just sit back like they're supposed to. But then again, I know some crones who still wants that control of everything too. So it kind of works both ways, yes. How about you, Rebecca? Oh, B2. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I think within the community, it really is about like women supporting other women. I just see a lot of like women's groups raising each other up, trying to keep the negativity out of it. I do see some differences in generations from the gatherings I've been to. I think it's just maybe, whether you've grown up with the internet, the different types of communities you've been used to, different, how should I put this? Different mysteries that you've been used to that you want to kind of save but adjust for newer times, newer generations. So that's a lot of what I've noticed.
I also feel like, we've seen it in the longevity of this thing, because I've been in this over 30 years, and I've seen it change somewhat. And so, yes, I do see women supporting other women for the most part as we are going forward. And I also feel like women who are not supporting women, or who are trying to be gatekeepers, or who are trying to control everything, I feel like people are more willing to back away from them, or to confront them and say, this is not how we want to do it. And you have to be, I'm sorry, you have to kind of think about, I saw something not too long ago at a gathering, and I have sat and kind of held on to it and thought about it. And do I speak to this much younger woman who is running her own group, because I was not impressed? That's not even the right word. I didn't like how she treated one of her people. I didn't think that it was kind, and it was very public. And I just thought that was not the right way to handle whatever the disagreement was between them. I'm not privy to that, but the way she did it. And so I feel like I'm really feeling like I need to go and speak to her and just say, look, let me just talk to you about this, and let me just discuss this with you. She may not like it, and she might not be my friend anymore. That's how it works. So, but I think that we have to look out for each other. And I think I'm seeing more of that. And I feel like, we're training our maidens as they move forward to be able to pick up the slack. I've got a former maiden who has moved into the mother stage, and she's taken up a lot of slack. We just had a conversation about midsummer, and she's like, do you want to lead ritual? You want me to lead ritual? What do you want to do? And so that was, so we had a little discussion about it. And I said, okay, we can talk about it and figure out what we want to do. I'm perfectly willing to do it, but I'm perfectly willing to step out of the way and let her do it, because I've been doing it for a long time. So I don't know that crones are particularly stepping back, but I feel like we're kind of stepping back here to kind of hold the knowledge and the information, and to help the younger ones move forward and learn what they need to learn, so that they may carry on the legacy. We're going to die. So we need somebody to step in, right? So we need to train them.
Yes.
This is in general, and this is a generality. But I would say that women in the witchcraft community do support each other much more than women in a lot of other communities. And I see this as an editor, that in general, the witchcraft, there's always an exception, but
Right.
The witchcraft community in general is a supportive community. We try to elevate each other.
Mhm.
And I see that also in the divination communities. I do not see it. I'm not even talking about mundane communities. I don't see it in other esoteric communities, not to, mention any fields like, some celestial ones, but where there's a lot of competition. But I really do see that. I think in general, there is a sense of community and a sense of protectiveness. And I hope that continues. I think that a lot of what we're seeing with some younger people, there is more tolerance of rudeness in our culture in general. And so that's a dangerous thing, and that's not a supportive thing. But I think that's very much a cultural thing, and we're products of our time, all of us.
I have, and that kind of makes me think of kind of more gearing off of the topic of women, but well, like the tolerance of rudeness and not even rudeness exactly. So like for example, I, as a lot of our viewers know, I grew up in a coven, and it was, I mean, it was my it was my weekend activities, I guess, just attending ritual or peering from around the corner at my mom's circle for like the rites that maybe were a little bit more um, not as kid friendly, I guess. Um, and I've noticed a lot of like back then, it seemed like a lot of people were very solemn, very I don't want to say withdrawn because they were very present, but they weren't. It didn't seem that in circles that I participated in, where people were as openly chattery, or they really had a lot of humility. And then all of a sudden, like I feel like now when I'm, because I'm kind of in that stage where I'm still in my parents' coven, but I'm trying to find more. I'm in my like early 30s, and I'm trying to find my placing in the world when it comes to the craft, and stand on my own 2 feet a little bit more. And I find that, because I'm so used to that family coven structure where, and it was even outside of our family, like our immediate family, but more people. And then I go to like public rites, especially. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Yep. We're doing it. And it's just interesting, the difference. And that might also be the difference of generation, where there's more younger people coming out. And I'm used to, not to call you old mom, older people participating in the craft. So it's interesting to see how the generations have changed, even like just with that starting when I was younger, growing up into it, versus like some people that are more newly coming to the craft even.
Yeah. I know since we had 4 children, we took them every place. We didn't believe in a babysitter. We just said, come on. And, having children with you at a public event can go both ways, because I have seen the good and the bad of it. And sometimes I look back now, since I'm almost 60, I look back and was like, did I do the right thing of taking my children with me, or should I left them with my parents or something? Because I wasn't around so much, because I was working 2 jobs to help support the pagan events that I was doing to help everybody else. So yeah, I do have some regrets of doing that. But then again, I look and I would have somebody come up to me, like there's probably like 7 or 8 or 10 or so, and it's like, oh, I remember you and your family doing this public rite. I learned so much at that time, and I feel like, okay, I did good.
You did.
So yeah.
I agree with you. I think you did well. I don't know that we are not. I'm seeing this whole idea of, oh, I don't want to shove the charge of the goddess down my children's throats. Well, okay, and I'm good with that, but can we take them to ritual? Can we show them what it is? Can we live a spiritual, witchy life? And I think that's important that we do that, and that children understand that life is sacred, and nature is sacred, and animals are sacred. And we can instill that in them. We don't have to beat them over the head with a Wiccan reed, but can we at least let them understand that there are times to be solemn, there are times to be sacred, there are times to be funny, there's times to, be social, and bring younger people into the craft. And I'm seeing, because I run a festival, and I'm seeing there's a lot of, nobody else as old as me, but more middle age, more the maiden, and more the mother than the maiden. This year at Puff, we did see a lot of children, and so that makes me hopeful for the future. My grandchildren, my son, and my grandchildren are in the craft. They come and they work at Puff, and do all the things that they tote and fetch. But the teenagers, I feel like we're missing something. We're trying to bring them into the craft, or at least into a spiritual path. So maybe bringing our kids to ritual is a great thing. It's a wonderful
I
thing,
think so.
and we should do it.
I think so. Even it's very important for kids to know their parents. You know, and so even if they end up doing something else with their lives later, but it's very important for them to know who their parents are and what their parents believe and think and are devoted to, so that, you know, later on you're not searching for those things. And these are, you know, and to be not cut off from it, because that's the opposite. To cut off your family from your, you know, what is something that's very vital for you in your life, and to essentially close the door and keep them out, because maybe there's never a perfect time. Like, we'll do this when they're ready, but I mean, when is that?
True. So if we bring them, if we start, I don't want to use the word indoctrinating, but just let them see it.
Right.
And see what we do.
Right. Right. To have to experience themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually earlier today, because I recently moved to a different side of the state, and I'm trying to, you know, find my place. This isn't the side that I grew up in or anything like that. My mom's community is a little, I mean, it's definitely spread out, but it's more concentrated on the other side of the state, it seems like. And I messaged my cousin and I was like, hey, you don't live very far away from me. Is there any like public rights or something? Or are you celebrating Lammas? What are you doing? And so he sent me a link to a store that's hosting a public rite, and it's very family friendly and like potluck style type thing. And they're going to do the circle creation. And I think it sounded like maybe it was a little bit more geared towards beginners, but I'm totally fine with that, and just finding like a new community in a way. And before I knew it was family friendly, I messaged him and I was like, is it okay for me to bring my two daughters, or is the youngest one a little too young? And he was like, no, absolutely. Like like bring them. We have a lot of family friendly events. We have crafts planned. And it was one of those things where my oldest daughter, that I have an age gap of about 9 years between my two children, and the older one, she got to see me when I was more prominently in serving in the high priestess role of my family's coven. And so she got to see me do like the lessons and the coven meetings and the rituals, and she was welcome to join if she wanted, or she could just play off to the side or hang out in her room, whatever she wanted. And then the younger one hasn't seen that side of me at all, because I've just had a lot of changes in my life since she was born, and haven't been able to kind of step into that role as much for the coven. And it's having that moment of like, okay, I grew up going to all these different pagan gatherings and holding hands with sometimes up to almost 100 people in a rite, and I loved those memories. And it's like, how do I show my kids those? And it's like, well, you have to bring them, you have to expose them, you have to, you know, take the moment to explain what you're doing, how to, you know, hate to say it, but kind of how to behave, how to conduct yourself a little bit, but still let them, you know, have that curious spirit. And so I'm excited because this upcoming weekend is the weekend I get to finally bring my youngest to a circle and kind of exposure to that, and see what happens.
Exciting.
Now, Betty, you have one child, right, or two?
Yeah. Yeah, we have, I'm solitary. We're pretty much, it's within our family is our practice, but I've been taking him to gatherings since he was a baby. I went to gatherings when I was pregnant, and it's really neat because he's kind of grown up with that as his community. He gets to talk to elders. He gets to talk to, you know, just so many different types of people. I think it's good exposure. It was really awesome to see when he was little, he would be learning about magic, and he just kind of, it was just natural. He'd come home and start talking about energy and making charms and stuff. So, I mean, you know, we do teach him, but a lot of it he just takes on, you know. He asks for things like wands, you know. We always say, you know, do you want this? Do you want to do that? But I do encourage him, you know, we're here to gathering with community to see people we don't normally get to see, you know, go out and participate in it. So now he's a teenager, so, you know, different type of interaction, but yeah, I think it's good to bring your kids as long as, you know, they're, you know, that as long as they want to come and you're not trying to like force them into anything, you know.
Now, I know you had some questions about community. What was the question you want to ask about community?
Well, I think one thing that's really affected our ability to go to gatherings is, especially since the pandemic, a lot of them are changing or are disappearing. You know, there's different types of people, like a lot of gatherings are getting older. You know, our community had one pagan pride day, and then that was in 2019, and then obviously that didn't happen again. So we kind of missed that just in our local area. So, you know, I just was kind of wondering how other people were working with that, or, you know, trying to like Tish said, trying to get more generations of people coming. So
I'm also my son grew up in the craft. He was about 13 when I entered the craft, and now I'm seeing him leading his own rituals and leading his own circles. So I just wanted to say, you know, maybe we're being able to kind of push that forward. But as far as the pandemic hurt all of us in so many ways. We decided, I guess it was 2020, I'd have to look at a calendar, that we decided we would do online. We did the entire festival, 3 days online. It was interesting. It was a learning curve for sure. But we also have managed to continue, and it's not been easy. It's been, you know, to kind of get people to back in the habit of coming out. Come out, bring your sleeping bag, bring your tent, get whatever you're going to do. But Pagan Pride, I think they skipped the same year. But here in Nashville, Pagan Pride, I'm so sorry, ragweed season, y'all, in Nashville.
No worries.
Whew, but Pagan Pride here, we try to make a big deal out of it, and they usually have, you know, 1,500 people that show up and wander through, and there's a lot of booths and whatever. And we try and talk about supporting each other. So Sunday, two days ago, the Pagan Pride people had a thing that they sponsored, and it was come and, you know, get a reading, and everybody who read, we donated that money, you know, to Pagan Pride to help them defray their costs. So I feel like, and they support us. A lot of the Pagan Pride people come to Puff. So we kind of, you know, I do a workshop there. I always have a booth there. So it's a matter of just making yourself get out there and do it. I think we became kind of reclusive during that long period of the pandemic, and we need to kind of, I feel like we need to step back out when we're being, it got comfortable to stay home and do it online, didn't it?
It did. It really did.
Back in the day, and this is decades ago. I mean, you know, it feels like yesterday. It was a long time ago. So this is before Zoom. I had a coven that was, you know, 4 compass points of the country. Wow. And at that point, in order to do rituals, and we didn't want to break up. It just, you know, we had started in one place, and life took us in different places. And we started working with attunement. You know, I mean, Chrissy, you and I, like, I was like so concerned about the time zones, but I think it goes back to there because we were doing things by attunement. And I know that the Fellowship of Isis also does a lot of rituals by attunement. And so it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as being in person with people. But I think that depending on circumstances, and at least that first year of the pandemic, that wasn't entirely, there were reasons why people didn't want to go out. And, you know, we will adapt to circumstances, whatever they are. Like we're like weeds. They can't just keep us down. So whatever those circumstances are, I have a lot of faith in that, whether it is on Zoom, whether it is by attunement, whether it is in person, we will make it work, and we will make it serve us in the community in whatever way that we can. because we don't all have the same circumstances.
Right.
And there are people, you know, I remember the year, Tish, that you did it virtually. And, you know, there's pros and cons. But one of the pros is it opened up festivals for people who are living, you know, not everybody lives in areas where there are covens.
True.
Mm-hmm. So it opened it up for people who maybe could not otherwise have attended a festival.
I agree. I've had people that said, you know, there's a lady that lives in Alaska. She's bedridden,
Right.
but she got to, you know, participate in festival.
Had experience.
And exactly, and was so happy about it. And other people were like, you know, not everybody can get out. Now, the last 2 years, because we've moved festival and we're more to the western side of the state,
Right.
and there is no internet. We are in the boondocks. And so what I've decided for this next year, that we're going to record everything, and we're going to put it up on YouTube so that people can still at least they can watch and still participate. We can't do it live,
Right.
but we can certainly
They'll
do
have
it.
their own experience. And, you know, there are people who are financially challenged. There are people who have
Yes.
work or they're bedridden, or they have, you know, they're caregivers. There's so many reasons why people can't go. But that doesn't mean they have to be cut off.
That's right. We need to try and include them as well.
We're 21st century. We're gonna open up portals for people who otherwise would not be able to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I agree completely with everything you guys have been saying. One of the things that kind of two things I'd like to add. So the first part, just being kind of remote. I live in rural Iowa. I am over an hour's drive from any city that I would perceive pretty much having covens or pagan events, and you know I have to. It's a lot of driving for me. It feels like, and that makes it kind of hard because it's also, you know, I don't know all the shops in those areas. I'm still kind of new to this area that I live in right now, and I don't know a lot of the people that are creating events. It's still hard even with the age of social media to see those events. Like, where are they being advertised?
Right.
And how do I fall in that target audience? So, I mean, that's been kind of a struggle, but the blessing about, at least that came out of the pandemic, is that there is more festivals online. There's more accessibility to kind of attend events and classes and get into other communities all across the country and even the world. And even like this within the Cauldron, we initially started as just a Facebook group, and the original goal was to just get witches together, witchy-minded individuals, and to swap knowledge and just have that door open where it's like you just have to, no admission, just pop in and we'll start talking. Sometimes it was planned discussions, sometimes it was free chat, and just let's just all further each other's practice in some way. And I mean that was a huge blessing, because even seeing how that's evolved to like this podcast, and we get to, you know, bring people basically right to someone's living room practically, and have those conversations and pursue those avenues that I honestly, I don't know. Like, I would love to say that it still would have unfolded the events, but having the pandemic and that change on community, I think there's small blessings that come in these disguises, and that was one of them. Moving forward though, I look for events in my area that are within a reasonable driving distance, and I am bewildered with how much my parents took me out, because I'm like, where did you find these events? And I know that a lot of it was that she created the event and she put it out there, and luckily other people found it. But like when I find something that I can attend or would like to attend, hopefully it's like finding a jewel where you're like, oh, I found it. It's okay. Okay, I gotta clear my whole schedule for this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, have you, over the years, I would say over 30, 40 years, Do you think the path has changed a lot to be more open and accepted more than it was back in the 60s and 70s and 80s?
Well, I think that that's in response to cultural changes, because in the 60s and the 70s going into the 80s, if you were open, you could be met with a lot of prejudice and worse.
Yes.
I mean, I remember this would have been in the early 2000s, so I mean, it's 21st century. I remember going to a festival, and I was a presenter, and I want to say I was there with Christopher Pensack, and we were both presenters, and why are we even here? Because people were going to this weekend event to feel free and to take their pentacle out from under the sweatshirt. And that was really why they were there, for that freedom. Everything else was icing on the cake. They really didn't need anything else, but for that weekend to feel free and safe. And that's in the 21st century. So imagine 20, 30 years earlier, you could be fired from your job.
Yeah.
You could be, there are dire consequences. So I think that, yes, we are more open, but that's because we can be more open.
I agree. It's different. I live in the South, so we still have our issues here. We always have protesters that show up at PPD, and we always have people that drive by the pub site and yell, things at us. But we're still there, and we're still here, and we're still standing out. I mean, I remember that, I've always been out because I owned a store. But I remember people that wore their, they wore their pentacles under their shirts and under their, and I just remember one girl, and she came in and she said, I think there's another witch at my work because he saw my pentacle accidentally and looked at me and nodded. And so she was so excited. And so I'm glad that we've moved away from that whole secret. We have to hide who we are and what we are.
It's not just in the South. I hear stories from it's not just in the South. I have heard some stories in New Hampshire, and that's as far north as you can go.
That's crazy. I mean, I understand it here because rednecks, but it's, to me, in the north, I can't believe. Anyway, it's just mind-boggling to me.
I taught at a store, Concord. It's no longer there, Pachamama, in Concord, New Hampshire. One of the first stores where I taught. They always had protesters. But I've spoken at conferences, outdoor conferences in New York City.
Gosh.
And there were protesters. People, with bullhorns trying to, speak over the presenters. It's crazy.
I feel better then. It's not just us.
No, it's not just you.
Yeah. When we go to Salem, Massachusetts, you especially if you go around Samhain, which we've been so many times, I don't suggest it because it's packed, busy, but it's nice to go once in a while around that time. But yeah, you get preachers out there on the blowhorns and saying, "Oh, you're doing sin and everything," and I always told my children and my Kevin mates, if they go with me, just ignore it. Don't try to argue back. Just
don't engage.
It seems like such a mixture of experiences that I've had. Like, of course, I've been to Salem and seen what my dad or what my mother was talking about, and like I could see how that could be kind of intimidating especially because I feel like that is a place that a lot of witches flock to because they have that kind of like, oh, this is where our, ancestors, even if they were directly or indirectly, linked to them, were at. And, it was like a foundation in America on slowly acceptance for witchcraft. But it's but I've also been at like pagan events, like a Central Iowa Pagan Pride event when I was growing up, and seen, or no, actually this was I want to say it was in Colorado when we were there at a pagan pride event. There was some Christians and they were protesting, but they weren't hateful. So it was a different experience for me. I've been luckily been blessed with, I haven't seen a lot of more hateful experiences when it comes to protesters. Given not everyone also had, so I had my father who, those of you who have seen him on the podcast here, he's pretty accepting. He's also, I like to call him a chatty Cathy. So he, approached very respectfully, and actually saw them sit down and have like a pretty lengthy conversation just about their belief systems. And I know that can also be like kind of one-off scenarios, but it was that moment where it was just like, okay, we're slowly bridging that gap. We're bringing that acceptance together, while honestly thinking maybe 20 years before that, before my time, like that probably wouldn't have been a conversation that would have been had. But I think sometimes it's that self-realization that how you would want to be treated, and then just having that like, okay, I'm going to approach them the way that I would want someone to approach me, where if they think I'm spooky or dark or whatever, and it's kind of that, okay, let's have this conversation, but let's meet in the middle, and but also I think you have to know when you're getting upset and when it's time to walk away from the conversation. Oh, yeah. So I'm seeing changes with that, I guess, from the cultural times, from what I expected and what I'm seeing. Also with my daughter, I have a middle schooler, and the topic of religion actually comes up quite a bit, where a lot of people will ask her, like, do you pray or do you go to church? And she kind of goes with a more, I've given her some kind of cop-outs. I mean, I should really be promoting that kind of like be very proud, but you get a little protective also of your child. And I tell her to talk about more of like an earth-based religion, and then kind of warm it up from there and see, because I don't want her to have to deal with it. We're especially we're not so far south, but there is a heavy Christian population, and we hear about it very loudly, and I'm fine with that. It's their beliefs, but it's kind of that teaching her to navigate. But I'm almost worried that I'm teaching her to be nervous, and I'm trying to find that bridge between the two.
Well, I mean, it's realistic, though. I mean, it's very important for her to be safe, mm-hmm. and to know how to keep herself safe, mm-hmm. and to develop that intuition for when you have to keep your guard up and when you are in a safer space.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. Oh, wow. How about you, too? I know you back there just being silent.
Yeah, as far as like negative interactions, that's actually one of the things that came up during my area's only pagan pride. There was a local church that was not happy about it, and so we kind of had to be on guard for make a welcoming environment for everybody, but also we didn't want to have trouble. And it's come a couple other times where it's like, is there going to be troublemakers here? One time it actually was a pleasant surprise. It was a camping gathering, and there were some other campers there, and one lady came over, just a random camper. She's like, "Oh, I love to hear your drumming and music," and she's really interested and excited with what we were doing, and it was really wonderful. And we're like, "Hey, come on over and participate. We'd be happy to have you." So it's not like we were trying to proselytize, but just we're a welcoming community. Come have some fun, And she was very open-minded about it. So you have good and bad. As far as like our family, we kind of go with the religion is a personal thing for us. We do pray, we do have gods, but at the same time, it's a private matter for our family, and I think that's a reasonable thing to take. I actually think that some of my relatives think I'm atheist because I'm not like out there with the religion, but it's one of those where it's a need to know basis thing for me, because I also live in I live in Iowa, which, I live in a city that's pretty diverse, but at the same time, it's still a conservative area overall. So within the state.
Yes.
I think that we've seen all the, run the gamut of everything. And we're very fortunate in the South that we have really wonderful state parks. And we've had good experiences and bad experiences, but we had several years ago in a park that we really loved, but they also had a hotel and an inn and very nice kind of, we call them bougie cabins down at the other end of the park. And the white nationalists took over that weekend. They seemed like every weekend, every time we had Puff, they had a convention and they were all full of those people. And the Rangers just could not. They came out and hung up with us. They came out and they said, "Hey, can we spend our breaks up here with y'all? Because we don't want to be down there with those people." So he made good friends with the Rangers, which is really important. And they came up and shopped. They knew there was always coffee on the front porch. They were welcome. We certainly didn't proselytize at all, but they did come shopping. And we said, dinner's at 6 and, y'all want to show up. So we've had very good luck in the park that we're in now, which is it's about 2 hours west of Nashville. And they have been fantastic to us. They have been absolutely fabulous to us. So, you if you can make friends with the local the Leos or the park guys, it's important that you do that, and that they know that you're not some kind of crazy out there sacrificing cats and all the rest of that stuff. So
yeah.
Yes.
I do feel like there's some there's still I think it's kind of getting better, but a decent misconception about what the craft is. I mean, given there is a wide variety, but it's interesting to see how much I still encounter that. Even with my friend groups, the people that I guess I've known for years, I'm still like a novelty of sorts. I've gone on a couple dates with the guy and that I grew up with, and he knew what I practiced, but then I was like the witch. I was the girl that was the witch. And it's like, well, I'm not gonna bibbity bobbity boo out of here. Like, what do you mean? I don't want to show up in that room and then have to perform tricks, because that's not going to happen.
No, but I think that's what you're thinking for some people.
Yeah.
They watch the bibbity bobbity boo out of there.
absolutely.
Yes. That has happened to us a lot, where they would invite my husband and I to a party, and they would introduce us not as Chris and Chrissy. It's like, these are the witch friends of mine. Did you bring your cards with you? Did you bring your pendulum with you? And stuff. It's just like, well, no, I just kind of came here for the barbecue to eat, socialize. I just, because what I am, I don't bring my whole trunk of magical stuff along with me. After a while, you don't get invited because you're too boring. You're too boring. They want all the magical stuff for you to, to kind of like show everybody else so they can show you off.
Right. Dog and pony shows.
Right.
Yeah. My husband's a Mason, and so because again I'm out there, and all the Masons know that he's married to a witch, and he said, I think that a lot of them are afraid of you. I'm like, good. That's as it should be. They need to be afraid of me.
Where I want them.
But no, I think it varies, and I think it kind of I'm seeing ebbs and flows of, for lack of a better word, prejudice against us. Yeah. But this year at Puff, we had a lot of them drive by and, yell things. But then we had a couple of them that came up and were really like, we've told the other Christians to not come down here and bother y'all. And so we had this very nice sort of religious, philosophical discussion at the front gate. It was lovely. It was a breath of fresh air as well. So, but we also we did a food drive, and I had everybody bring cans. So we had a couple of 100 pounds of, food to donate. And I wanted to donate it locally in Henderson or Tune, Tennessee. Had two different food banks turn us down because they were Christian. And I'm like, so you don't care if people go hungry? Well, you afraid that we witched all over the cans?
Right.
Yeah. That's right.
The cans don't have a denomination. The cans are just cans.
Well, the Lutherans in Memphis the Methodists in Memphis were happy to take our cans, and they knew where it came from, and they were happy to have it. So, there you go.
I think, in my experience, the people in Memphis are the nicest people in the whole country.
Aw,
I have always been
good of
Memphis.
you to say.
Kindness in Memphis. So good for them.
Good for them. Well, this is also the church that my 102-year-old mother-in-law attends on a regular basis. So,
Amber, you want I'm sorry. You want to go ahead and do that comment? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
So one of adding on to the discussion, Witchmaster posted or commented, most of us realize that we are in a culture that can be hostile towards open witches, largely due to Judeo-Christian groomed public. I feel like it seems like a lot of people are, how do I word this? My thoughts on this. I completely agree that a lot of us are kind of groomed towards that ideas. The one thing though, because I feel that personally, like I'm striving for, is to just kind of be a little bit more open for conversations with it, and just kind of to navigate that potential of hostility, but still try to spread awareness.
There is a lot of hostility and negative propaganda towards witches, towards magical practitioners, all around the world. You don't have to be an American or Judeo-Christian. A lot of Native Americans are very, traditionally are very hostile to any kind of witchcraft. Pagan Rome was not a witch. First recorded witch hunts were in pagan Rome. That's something that we need to be aware of, because there are people wherever you go, will be. You say you have to be careful how you identify yourself, because there are people who they think we're the threatening ones, but actually we're the ones in danger.
True.
There's the paradox. But yeah, it's not just here.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you can ask Amber. Her father loves to talk to a Christian. He would sit down for hours and just talk with them about our beliefs and everything. And he has put many of them thinking about walking their path and talking their path and how they do their path, or they're actually being true to themselves. Because, I think for us, we're more true to our beliefs than any other people sometimes. Because we, it says right in the Bible, we are the stewards of the land, not pagans or witches or anything, the human race. See? And we don't do that. We don't do that.
Where people misunderstand what a steward is.
Yeah, they do. They really do. And I think, Tish, you and I had something like this that we talked about last week, wasn't it? About how people from different beliefs, when they come and talk to us, they kind of think the worst of us. They don't, because we know the Bible more than almost they do, to be exact, almost.
Well, most of us come out of Christianity. I know I did. I was a Catholic and went 12 years of Catholic school. And I've read their book and I've studied their book for a year. That I studied it from cover to cover as in a class. And so I think that, but I also think that we are not sure exactly. They come thinking that they have their own preconceived notions. And so maybe we aren't doing a good enough job of saying, hey, we're not any of that. And being more, I don't know, out there. Maybe we need to do more blogs. Maybe we need to do more, I don't know, more mainstream, whatever, to make people understand. If you live through, and Judika and I certainly did, the satanic panic back in the 90s, people have all kinds of crazy ideas about us. And it's hard to dispel that. It's hard to deny that you're, whatever, you sacrifice cats or whatever, because people don't believe you. And so you don't really have any proof that you don't sacrifice cats. So,
I know, but I mean, it's really interesting, Tish, because you're like resonating all these things with me. Because, when you were saying before about Nashville, and you made me think of that store in Concord, New Hampshire. They hung I mean, I don't even want to say it because I'm a cat lover. There was like a cat hung outside the store. I mean, I didn't see it, but she came in one day, and somebody had left a dead cat. So
oh my God!
It's not the witches. It's not the witches sacrificing cats.
No,
but people believe what they want to believe.
And it's hard to dispel that. Look at, so.
It was to get people like, what do you believe versus what do you know?
Yeah. And what do they know?
Right. What do you know?
What do you really know? One of the, it's been funny the last couple of years in this park that we're in, because it's 15,000 acres of woods. I mean, we're way out there. And people drop animals off, dogs off. And so in the last 2 years, we found homes for dogs. And so the rangers are laughing because, our new motto is come to Puff, get a dog. But it's just been a really kind of funny phenomenon. And, they think that's great that we're, taking dogs home, and they go to the vet and we get pictures of them laying on the bed after they've had their bath and whatever, from the people that take them home. But maybe we need to, I don't know, publicize that more. Look, this dog got a wonderful home, and now he lives in Memphis or whatever. I think like there's a couple of them that ended up in Ohio and whatever, to really show people. I mean, but we don't, because that almost feels like proselytizing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think we're so used to keeping low, keeping the low profile. Maybe it's just a bit of a, an advertising campaign.
I think that's one of those things where I was kind of hinting at, like, opening that conversation, because I feel like sometimes, we, like, I go to work and I don't talk about anything. The coworkers I have, they don't even know that my family does a podcast, because it just doesn't come up. But then that opens the door to a lot of other conversations, and it's like, I'm getting excited because my coworker is telling me that she's getting, she wants to get the moon phases on her arm, and all I'm thinking is like, Amber, that was your chance. That was your opening, And I'm like, as open as I have been in the past, and I still am in certain ways, it's sometimes it's hard when you're sitting there because you can't put the cat back in the bag, I guess, once it's out. It's kind of, but at the same point, like when you're already out there, sometimes I feel that, like when it comes to like saving those pets and rescuing them and finding them new homes, it's like, you might as well toot your horn a little.
I put myself out of the broom closet accidentally. When I published my first book, I did not think anybody would read it. Therefore, I used my real name. A lot of metaphysical authors do not use their real names. And sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's, Lady Rainbow, and her mother didn't name her that. But sometimes it's a name like, I don't know, John Smith, and it could be, anybody could be named John Smith, but actually John Smith, that's not that John Smith's legal name. That's their nom de plume for privacy. But I genuinely did not think anyone would read it. Therefore, why do I need privacy? And then I started getting email. But it's better. I find that, and I mean, it depends on your circumstances. It might not be better for everyone. I find I was already divorced, and my husband wasn't going to threaten me.
True.
I'm going to take the kids away because you're a witch. He did say to me when we were still married, and that is something that people face. So there are a lot. I mean, I'm not scorning it. There's a lot of reasons why you might want privacy,
Mhm.
I agree.
And
I,
you don't know, like, you can't put the cat back in the bag. We don't
no.
know what it's going to be. If you would ask me when we were married, would he have ever said anything like that to me? I would have said, "Oh no,"
Hmm.
Yeah.
but he did on multiple occasions, and he scared me. So it,
Uh, oh,
but
go ahead.
it's better not to be blackmailed. But
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have.
you know,
I did the same thing. I used my real name. And there's been times that I thought, man, I wish I'd made up a name.
right?
But but there you go, right? And I get tickled at people because they're like, "So what's your name on Instagram and who are you on TikTok?" And I'm like, "I am just Tish Owen. I can't make up names now. It's too late." So,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's been times that I thought, man, I probably should have,
Yeah.
done
In
something else, right?
hindsight, but at the same time, nobody can blackmail me. Nobody can like.
Nope.
We're going to tell Facebook that's not your real name. Well, go ahead. I've got a driver's license.
Jump up.
Bitchy, you want to read this comment the Rich Master put out?
Yeah. It says, I think there are different kinds of witchcraft practitioners, so there could be a multitude of varying kinds of witches. I, for instance, practice no divination. And I do think that's true, that it depends on your tradition, how you could be reacted. I mean, there are folk magic traditions that use the Bible, so that would be a completely different
Sure.
reaction than if you do a more like esoteric polytheist type or,
Yeah.
Well, man,
ceremonial.
I think I agree that there's different kinds of us. I met a man years and years ago, in one of the incarnations of my shop, and he was an older man. I say that now because he's probably was my age now, back then, and he was a pagan and had been a pagan for decades. He didn't do magic, he didn't do spells, he didn't do divination, but he did commune with his gods. And I thought that was such an interesting, I had a very interesting conversation with him. And he came into the shop several times and we just talked about, different ways of looking at things. But most of us, maybe I don't want to say most of us, a fair number of us do divination. We do spells, we do incantations, we do read tarot cards and whatever. I'm sitting here playing with a pinnacle. I mean, this thing, pendulum right now. So I think it goes both ways, and I don't think that there's any. We should not look down on each other if we're doing different things. If you worship different than I do, I should not look down on you because we are all in this boat together.
We are an extremely diverse community.
Yes.
Okay. Well, even when it comes to, just spell work, for example, I mean, some of us are very, I whisper a spell to my coffee in the morning, to increase my productivity and to have it be a great day. And, sometimes better words than that. But, we all do certain things. But some of us, we're definitely more of the, like, I have the big herb cabinet and I'm pulling things and I'm doing things and I'm, have a little satchel in my purse or on my belt. And, this is how the day's going for me. But then other times, I find that I kind of have little ebbs and flows with it where sometimes it seems like, just putting that thought out there, that little manifestation out there of like, this is what I want, this is what I'm leading towards. And sometimes it feels like the goddess just brings it in for me.
Yes.
In a reasonable amount of time, and that I don't feel the need to do the spell because it happened. There was no need. I did the work. But then other times I'm like, I need this to get over that hurdle. And I don't think that it's hard to judge a witch because we're all different. We all
Yes.
have so many different things. Even me and my mother, like she literally taught me, and we still practice a little bit differently and have different thoughts. And it's interesting even when we get on the talk of spirituality because it's we have different views on certain things, and it's amazing how it varies for all of us. I think that's kind of lends to the one thing that I would truly say if I had to pick like that, like the one thing that is so annoying but lovely about being a witch is that yes, there is books, but there's no the book that tells you what to do.
Right.
And we're all traveling our paths, but we're all on different paths, even though they intersect. And it's just amazing to watch each other get further on it and how that unfolds for all of us.
I think a lot of
no
us,
instruction manual.
I think a lot of us got on this path because we wanted to forge our own path, and we didn't like being told what to do, what to read, what to think, what to believe. And so we're this just beautiful diversity. I mean, if we wanted to all believe the same thing, maybe we'd be doing something else.
Exactly. We are about at the top of the hour. Judika and Tish, can you tell us what you two ladies have upcoming?
Judika, go first.
Okay. I have this deck of cards upcoming. This is the Magic Spells Oracle, and it will be out in October. And it is available all kinds of places for pre-order. And I was telling Chrissy, I'm an author, but I'm an editor. You know, I edit other people's books. But I woke up in 2025 and I found that I was a deck creator. So
Wow.
yeah, it just sort of, I woke up and there I was, and so I'm kind of wondering at a little bit, but it's a nice thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. When I had a shop, I couldn't keep your books on the shelf. They just were
If you still had a shop, I'd come and visit you.
And so, I mean, I sold so many of your books because you just do great work, and so I have to praise you for a few minutes. Judika and I have known each other for what, I don't know, a long time, decades, absolutely, and so we kind of keep up with
not
each
that
other.
we're more than 20 years old either of us.
No, absolutely not. But I've always, you are one of those people that I really always admire, and I feel like you always walk your talk. So I have to praise you because I do know you. I am working on. It's so funny. I've got murder mystery books that I write. I write pagan books, but I also write murder mysteries. And so, one of my murder mystery books is called A Death in the Family, and one of the local shops put it up on their website, I think on Instagram. And it was like, this is a wonderful book. It's a guide for death and grieving. And I'm like, no, it's about killing people. Okay. So I thought, well, maybe I need to write a book on death and grieving. So that's been in my head. So, and then I'm always working on puff. It's always puff time. So, trying to make sure that all my ducks are in a row and everybody knows what they're doing. And I just, worked with a lovely lady who lives in Ohio. And, we are, as whatever path you walk, we are predominantly white people for the most part. And so next year, because we are at the mercy of the park and we have to take whatever dates we can get. And so next year, our weekend encompasses Juneteenth, Midsummer, and Father's Day. So we have to do. So I called her and I said, look, I would like to acknowledge Juneteenth and do something, but that is not my job. But, would you like to step into that role? So we had that conversation like 2 nights ago. And she's like, oh, I've got all these ideas and we can do all this and we can bring in the ancestors. And I'm like, jump up, girl. I'm all ready for it. So, so it's always puff time for me, but I'm trying to make myself write more. I've taken, I've got a couple of books that are languishing that I need to get my light a fire under my own self and get that done. So,
well, I hope you do.
I'm doing it.
I'm looking forward to it. For your books, Judika, your cards.
I'm so excited.
The upcoming projects you ladies have, I'm really excited for. And I just want to tell everybody thank you so much for coming on to this episode. It was a nice chit chat. My favorite is just getting together with everybody and just talk about the big W.
There you go. Well, thanks for having us. It was great.
You're so welcome. And for everybody, subscribe, share, and like. And until next time, be blessed. Goodbye.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.